the ringing in my ears is, I can't describe it other than to say that it's incredibly loud, or it was, and it just was louder than anything, louder than my voice, loud, nothing could mask it. So I got to a point where I was talking to Amalia about this, that in that 7 month period, the last 7 months, I started questioning life. I started questioning whether or not I wanted to do this anymore. If there's no cure, I can't drink alcohol like I was for the rest of my life, and I don't want to, actually. So that's when the thoughts started to creep in that maybe it'd be better off if I wasn't here. My right ear, now taking consideration that I had catastrophic tinnitus in both ears, same level, same volume, same frequency, both ears. I realized in my right ear, I could just barely hear the tinnitus. Maybe a level 1, if that. Which, if you look at the chart, level 1 is really not anything. My left ear is decreased, the volume and the pitch, to where it's down to a 7. It's unbelievable. I'm thinking to myself, this can't be happening. It's not. It just can't be. But it is.
Hi, everyone. I am glad you're back to my show. This is Amalia, and my show is called Growth Factor, because there's many ways to grow: spiritually, mentally, physically. The reason I have my friend Chris Whitman on is he's got a large Facebook group because of a particular physical issue he's been having for about 2 years. And like you, I've had in the last 3 years tragedies and near tragedies. So that's why I like Chris to be on my show today to share his story, because he's got triumphs to share and success and healing. So thank you for being here, Chris. Can you tell us your story and what you've been dealing with?
Yes, Namalia. First of all, I'd like to thank you for what you do for so many people. You help so many people, and they benefit because of the efforts that you put forth. So thank you for having me on today. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. What I would like to say is that I've struggled with tinnitus, catastrophic tinnitus, for the last 2 years. And it's been very difficult for me during that time to handle it. It's life-changing, it's debilitating, it just changes everything. So to give you a little bit of a background, I had mild tinnitus at least a year and a half, maybe 3 years previous to when I had the COVID virus. After the COVID virus, everything changed. Everything changed. The tinnitus is the main issue. It went from mild tinnitus that I could easily ignore, and I didn't even know what tinnitus was at the time. I had never heard the word. I had never heard anybody talk about it, didn't know anybody that had it. I just knew I had this incredibly loud noise ringing either in my ears or my head or both. So as a result of that, my wife took me to the emergency room where I tested positive for COVID. And the residing physician there asked me if there were any other symptoms that I had. And up to that point, I hadn't been sleeping. I had insomnia. So I'd actually went 3 days without sleeping. And that's the reason why my wife took me to the emergency room to find out what was going on. So after I tested positive for COVID, then things started making sense. I started to do some research, and then I started to find out more and more about tinnitus. So obviously the next step was to go to an ENT, an audiologist, and I did. I got a hearing test, and they determined that I had severe hearing loss, which I also believe was caused by the COVID virus. And obviously I had tinnitus. The ENT did nothing. The ENT more or less spent maybe 5 minutes with me, looked in my ears, acknowledged that I did have tinnitus, and shrugged her shoulders and said, "You're just going to have to learn to live with it." That's devastating. That's devastating. She also said there is no cure. And that's even more so devastating. So I just went through what most people do, frantically, desperately trying to find answers. The next thing that I did was I went to another ENT just to get a second opinion. Of course, it was the same thing. They did an audiogram where they determined I had from 6,000 hertz, it drops completely off. So the same thing, the ENT spent all of about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes with me, looked in my ears and said basically the same thing. You're just going to have to learn to live with it. At that point, I was becoming desperate because I wasn't sleeping. I would go 1 day, 2 days, 3 days without sleep because the sound was so incredibly loud that it's just impossible to sleep. I tried masking, which a lot of people with tinnitus do, and some with success, those with mild tinnitus, but mine was catastrophic. Mine was to the point where it's undescribable. You'd have to experience it, which I wouldn't want you to. And I've heard people say that before. They say, unless you have it, you really don't know. They call it the invisible illness for a reason. I may look normal and act normal, but inside there's something going on that is just totally distracting and just has an effect on every aspect of your life. Well, after that, then I went to a nurse practitioner, and what she wanted to do was prescribing antidepressants and benzos. I've never done prescription medication before. I've never done drugs, never done illegal drugs. And so when I asked her, I said, is that going to help my tinnitus? She said, no, it's going to help with your depression. And I said, but I'm not depressed and I'm not anxious. I have tinnitus really, really bad. So I reluctantly tried that, and the side effects from the medication were worse, actually, or added to the problem. I tried everything. I was so desperate. I went and I then went to the GP, another GP, where again he wanted to prescribe antidepressants. I went to went to a psychotherapist reluctantly. My wife thought maybe if I could get some counseling, but see, psychologically there was nothing wrong with me, and I knew there was nothing wrong with me. But I did try that, which he didn't even know what tinnitus was. I had to actually inform him or educate him in regards to what tinnitus was. So that didn't make me feel too good. I didn't have too much confidence in that. Went to also, believe it or not, at a friend's request, I went to a chiropractor, thinking that maybe that might be, again, when you're desperate, when you're at a point in your life where you want an answer, you're willing pretty much to try anything. That's not necessarily good, obviously, but what it means is that you've reached a point where you want help so badly for the condition that you have that that's why so many people fall prey to a lot of the gimmicks that are on YouTube and a lot of the supplements that people buy, is because they're desperate. Really, the last thing that really decided it for me was I went back to my GP. I went a total of 6 times. And the last time that I went there, he said to me that we have 17 different antidepressants that we can try, that you can try. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. You're prescribing an antidepressant for me, which actually, the research that I've done are ototoxic. Most antidepressants are ototoxic. They cause tinnitus or they make it worse. So it's ridiculous to think that that's going to help. It doesn't. So that's when I decided that I wasn't going to do this pharmaceuticals anymore. I decided that I was going to go ahead and start my own Facebook page, which is called Tinnitus Worldwide. And I was not going to censor it. I was not going to exclude anyone, as long as they remained civil. People could express their opinions. They could share the research that they've done. We can encourage, which we do, encourage one another, and we can understand one another and have compassion for one another. In regards to the desperation that I felt and the hopelessness and helplessness that I experienced through the 2 years I've been dealing with this, not just the tinnitus, but also the loss of taste and smell and the brain fog and everything that goes along with long COVID, which is actually what I have. I started the Facebook page Tinnitus Worldwide specifically because I wanted to reach out to people all over the world, regardless, who have tinnitus, regardless of how they have tinnitus or how they got tinnitus. And in so doing, I've been able to correspond with people all over the world. And it's been beneficial. It really truly has made a difference in people's lives, mine especially. So we'll provide a link to Tinnitus Worldwide below, and you're welcome to join. You're welcome to be a part of that community. It's a good group of people that offer a wide variety, not just research, which a lot of them do extensive research and share, but also just the companionship. Isolation is a terrible thing, and that's really what really troubled me the most. Is a lot of times when I wasn't able to sleep as a result of the tinnitus, then I would be outside, sit outside the house by myself, and I would feel so lonely. I would feel like I was the only one in the whole world that was experiencing this affliction, and it was devastating to me. I'm a very strong-willed individual. I feel like I'm able to do. I always have been able to figure problems out, and I'm very articulate and very detail oriented. So it was very real troubling to me. So Tinnitus Worldwide has provided an opportunity for people with tinnitus, regardless if it's mild or severe, to come together and share with one another in various ways. So I encourage you to be a part of that, and you're welcome to. After I went to the GP the last time, I determined that I was not going to take any antidepressants anymore. They weren't solving the problem. They actually were contributing. Well, they weren't contributing, but they were adding to the problem. The pharmaceuticals, there are none that benefit those that have tinnitus. I've done so much research. I really truly have. There's nothing that's out there that will make a difference when it comes to tinnitus. On the contrary, most of them are ototoxic. It's just the way it is. So what I decided to do, and it's hard for me to share this because I don't want to endorse this, and I don't want to recommend it, but I said to my wife, I'm going to go ahead and self-medicate. And she said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and use alcohol as a means to deal with this affliction because I can't sleep and I'm miserable. I'm just totally miserable. So that's what I started to do. I regulated it. I wasn't a drunk and I wasn't an alcoholic, but I did use alcohol as a means to numb myself, to dull my senses. And so I got into a routine and I was only getting, mind you, 3 hours of sleep a night. That was it. That's all I could do. And that's not really enough for a human being to survive for very long. As a result of loss in taste and smell, I was losing weight. I went from 160 pounds down to about 130, that's a lot to lose. And so I was just using alcohol as a means to deal with a situation that I saw no solution to. And again, when you're desperate, you resort to drastic means. And sometimes that's not good. So for about 7 months, I used alcohol as a means to numb myself and dull my senses. And it did work, but it's detrimental to my body, of course, and I can't do it long term. Plus, it causes other problems. And then when I would wake up the next day, I'd be right back in the same situation. I'd think, all right, now what are you going to do? And the ringing in my ears is, I can't describe it other than to say that it's incredibly loud, or it was, and it just was louder than anything, louder than my voice, nothing could mask it. So I got to a point where I was talking to Amalya about this, that in that 7 month period, the last 7 months, I started questioning life. I started questioning whether or not I wanted to do this anymore. If there's no cure, I can't drink alcohol like I was for the rest of my life, and I don't want to actually. So that's when the thoughts started to creep in that maybe it'd be better off if I wasn't here, especially in regards to my wife. Now, when I say that, the reason why I say that is because I love my wife more than I love myself. We've been married 36 wonderful years. We've got 2 children, 4 grandchildren. But what I was putting her through, it just broke my heart to think that the affliction that I had was causing her so much trouble and so much difficulty, and she was trying her best to help me in any way she could, and I felt so bad about that. I just felt like I felt like I didn't want to put her through any more. And so I did consider on more than one occasion ending my life. It's hard for me to admit that. It truly is. But it was usually when I was alone at night, sitting, usually it's summertime here. So I'd be sitting outside at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning all by myself with this incredible ringing in my ears. It's a form of torture. It really truly is. It's a form of torture. I had no desire to eat because I couldn't taste or smell, so I wasn't eating. My wife was trying to make me supper, trying to find all kinds of different things for me to eat, but I wasn't eating. So yes, the thought crossed my mind quite frequently, actually. I would say daily, especially when I would wake up after I had slept for 3 hours, and I would wake up and I would be so disillusioned, and I would think, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't. I don't want to do it. I can't do it. I don't have any strength left. That's when my faith in God came into play. Is that my wife would remind me, she would say, Chris, God has a purpose and a plan, not only for your life, but for what you're going through right now. And when she said that, and she would say it quite often, she would remind me of that, I would feel rejuvenated. I would feel like, well, maybe the suffering that I'm going through right now is so that I can reach out to others who are suffering too. On Tinnitus Worldwide especially, that's where I spend most of my time. Because if they're going through what I'm going through and I give up, what kind of message is that going to send to them? And if they know that I'm suffering in the capacity that I am, and I was in the minority. Most people don't have catastrophic tinnitus. Most people don't. They just don't. And that's why they can live with it. But I'm in the minority, and maybe God chose me. I didn't necessarily want to be chosen, nor did Job, but maybe God's using me in that capacity. And if so, then I want to keep on living for that reason, and also for my wife. I want to live for my wife because I love her. I thank God for it. I'll end with this, that I really do believe that it's important to know that you're not alone. It's important to know that there's others out there that care about you. And even if it's a phone call, I'll get phone calls in the middle of the night from people all over the world that are desperate and they are on the verge of suicide. I just got one 2 nights ago, 4 o'clock in the morning, and a person called me and they were ready to more or less commit suicide. And by talking to me and by me trying to remind them, use me as an example. Look at me. Look at what I'm going through or what I've been through. If I can do it, you can do it. And I'm your friend, and you can call me anytime. We can talk. We can pray. We can pray together. You want to pray together? To offer encouragement like that is really sometimes the only thing a person needs is to know somebody else is there that cares. And most importantly, God's the one. He's the one. God's the one that really cares. And he's the one that will take care of us all.
I've known Chris for a while now. We've done prayers together. We've done healing. We've cried together. I've begged God, the creator, whatever your belief system is, whatever that being is in the other realm that we can't see right now, that allowed us to come back in this body. You know, being a soul in this body, we are all soldiers right now in this war over the past 3 years. And Chris has played his part by having this severe situation, creating a Facebook group. I know he's even sent hearing aids to people around the world. So he's doing the best he can, doing God's work. And I know that's why we're here. But I also know that it's called suicide by sound. So Chris only told me today he was having these thoughts and he's sharing it with you. But I already knew because earlier in the year, I have someone close to me that did finalize I don't know how to say it, but no longer with us partially because of the tinnitus or the tinnitus. But what I can talk about is my friend Stephen Ordonia, and I'll put the link below. I've interviewed him, and all of his symptoms were his psychiatric meds, like bipolar meds, stopped working because of the COVID shot. It wasn't COVID, it was a COVID shot. He had Johnson & Johnson and fiber. His vasectomy was hurting him. He had his shoulder, his heart, his heel. He was hurting all over. He was inflamed. So because of what happened early in the year to my family, a severe tragedy, I was able to recognize in Stephen Ordonio what was going on. And he said, I'm going to take my life, but he, thank God, hasn't. So when I would talk to Chris, little things he was saying, I was sensitive to. So I know I knew there was nothing I could do. And I knew I could just be there for him, show that I care, pray with him. But I learned because of the family member and because of my friend Stephen Ordonia that it's called suicide by sound, because the tinnitus, you just can't live every day like this. So together, Chris and I have been begging God. We've been helping other people. My question is, what is the name of the doctor, if you're open to share it? What is the treatment and how have you improved? And has it been a week or 2 or a month?
Well, what's changed my situation, Amalia, is that Lori was concerned about me a couple Sundays ago. I was getting to the point where the alcohol was actually taking its toll, the combination of the alcohol and not eating. And so we went to a doctor and he prescribed ivermectin. And I took the ivermectin for a week. And he has me on the ivermectin for a week on, a week off. Well, I took it for a week and then the week off. And then we went back to see him on a Monday and he prescribed our supplements that the doctor recommended we get from Peter McCullough. That was on a Monday. I took the ivermectin and I took the 2 supplements and the vitamin D. I woke up Tuesday morning. I slept 9 hours, which in 2 years, I've only been able to sleep 3 hours. And again, sometimes I stay up a day or two. So this is totally revolutionary to me. So I slept 9 hours. I woke up, and the first thing I was sharing this with Amalia. The first thing that when I woke up and opened my eyes, the first thing I realized is I could smell something, and it just struck me odd. And I didn't know what I smelled, but I could smell something. So my wife was out in the kitchen. I come out into the kitchen and I said, Lori, I think I can smell. So we're frantically opening up the coffee can, and I'm like, I can smell coffee and I can smell this and I can smell that. And so then the next thing is I just thought I couldn't believe it. So the next thing that she made me pancakes with butter and honey. And I could taste the pancakes. I could taste the butter. I could taste the honey. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was just too hard to believe. So then it was right at that time, Amalia, that I was sitting here at the kitchen table after I got done with my pancakes, and I realized my right ear. Now taking consideration that I had catastrophic tinnitus in both ears, same level, same volume, same frequency, both ears. I realized in my right ear, I could just barely hear the tinnitus. Maybe a level 1, if that. Which, if you look at the chart, level 1 is really not anything. And I'm like, Lori, my right ear. And then my left ear is decreased, the volume and the pitch, to where it's down to a 7. So I've been on. And again, it's unbelievable. I'm thinking to myself, this can't be happening. It's not, it just can't be. But it is, and it has. And I've shared this information with the folks on Tinnitus Worldwide. So that's where I'm at right now. And that's why when people talk to me, they say, you seem different. There's something different about you. And that's the difference, is the tinnitus. I still have it in my left ear at a level 7, but it's tolerable. It's something I believe I can live with if that's where it stays. Hopefully, maybe it'll go down a little bit more. The tinnitus is a form of torture.
For those of you who know Chris from his Facebook, he does not yet have a Twitter, but I know Chris from talking on the phone, doing prayers, doing healings together. He's a different man. The moment we spoke today on the phone, he normally, to me, especially, I can now describe the contrast. He seemed like a soldier that just came back from war. So he's beat up, but he's a kind man. So he's trying to talk to you, but he doesn't have the energy, the will, and the spirit. And so when I talked to him on the phone, I didn't know any of this that he just told you. I just was thinking, is this Chris? This doesn't sound like Chris. It sounds like a regular man. Because before it was a beat up man. It was, I mean, he had trouble smiling. He had trouble, the energy in his voice. And this, I'm looking at a regular man. So I just so happy. And I just want to thank the Creator. Thank you, God, that our blessings are working, our healings are working. This is what we've been asking for.
I know. Thanks, God.
This is incredible.
Thanks, God. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And you know what's amazing? I'm getting sweaty right now because I'm trying not to cry. It's a miracle, and we're just going to be moving forward. But I need to acknowledge that, you know, like the next days and weeks that you're going to be healing, please God, more and more, and we'll have to maybe do prayers and healings for complete healing. But it's almost like we're going to look back. It's going to be a distant memory, and I just want to remember and acknowledge the Creator, that you're helping us and you're making it come true. So if I can ask God, you know, the other people that we've been praying for and doing healings on, please God, let them also see the miracles that Chris Whitman is having.
Thank you, Amalya. And you know, the interesting thing, thank you. I appreciate your prayers. I appreciate your friendship. I really do. And your concern for me. And I find it interesting that most of the people that are on tinnitus worldwide will request prayer. They'll ask for prayer, because I believe that's what makes the difference. I really do. And there are many, many people there. I would say the majority of the people there that are more than willing to pray with you, for you. And that really does matter. So that's a good thing about tinnitus worldwide, is that prayer is definitely a big part of our community. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. That's fine. And if you don't believe, that's fine too. That's why there was no censorship, no discrimination. Thank you, Amalya, for having me on. Thank you again for all that you do. You do so much for so many people there, and I really admire that, and I'm encouraged and inspired by it. Thank you.
Thank you too, Chris. I want to tell everyone, Chris and I together, we do spaces on Twitter, which is an audio call. They're recorded. You can press play and listen to them again. But if you want to be part of that, just go to growthfactor.org on Twitter, and hopefully we'll get Chris on Twitter soon as well. So thank you all, everyone, for being here. I hope you share this so that we can find more people with the tinnitus and all other kinds of inflammation. And let's see what these products can do, as they're doing for Chris. Bye, everyone.